There's a moment in history when one man decided he was more powerful than an entire nation. August 18th, 1989. A commercial airliner explodes mid-air over Colombia, killing 110 innocent people. The target? One presidential candidate. The mastermind? Pablo Escobar. This wasn't just murder. This was a declaration of war. A drug lord so wealthy, so ruthless, that he believed he could bring a country to its knees. And for a while, he almost did. Colombia had never seen anything like this before. Judges assassinated in broad daylight. Journalists gunned down on their way to work. Politicians hiding in bunkers while their families fled the country. The streets of Medellin ran red with blood. And at the center of it all was a man who started as a small-time car thief and became the 7th richest person on the planet. But how did it come to this? How did one criminal become so powerful that he declared war on his own country? This is the story of Pablo Escobar, the narco-terrorist who held Colombia hostage. It's the story of the day he went too far. And it's the story of how a nation fought back against the most dangerous criminal in modern history. December 1st, 1949. A baby boy is born in Rio Negro, Colombia, a small town nestled in the Andes Mountains. His name is Pablo Emilio Escobar Gaviria. His father is a farmer. His mother is a school teacher. They're poor, but not desperately so. Young Pablo grows up in Medellin, a city that will one day become synonymous with his name. But in the 1950s and 60s, it's just another Colombian city struggling with poverty and limited opportunities. Pablo is smart. Too smart for his own good. He reads voraciously, especially books about great leaders and conquerors. He tells his mother he will be famous one day, that he will be remembered. She thinks he means as a president or a businessman. She has no idea what's coming. By his teenage years, Pablo is already showing signs of the man he'll become. He starts small, selling fake diplomas to students. Then he moves to stealing cars, stripping them for parts. He's entrepreneurial, ambitious, and completely devoid of moral boundaries. His friends later recall that even then, Pablo had a saying that would define his entire life. Plata o plomo. Silver or lead. Money or bullets. Cooperate or die. It's the early 1970s now. Colombia is changing. The marijuana trade is booming in the United States, and Colombian traffickers are making fortunes shipping it north. But Pablo sees something bigger. He sees cocaine. At this time, cocaine is still a relatively niche drug, used mainly by wealthy Americans. But Pablo understands something others don't yet grasp. The demand is about to explode, and he's going to be the one to supply it. Pablo starts working as a bodyguard and enforcer for a smuggler named Alvaro Prieto. He learns the trade from the ground up, making contacts, understanding routes, building relationships with corrupt officials. Then in 1975, Prieto was killed. Some say Pablo ordered the hit himself. Either way, Pablo takes over the operation and immediately expands it. He's not interested in small-time smuggling anymore. He wants an empire, and is willing to kill anyone who stands in his way. By 1976, Pablo Escobar was arrested for the first time on drug trafficking charges. The case seems solid. There are witnesses, evidence, everything needed for a conviction. But then something happens that will become Pablo's signature move. The witnesses disappear. Some are bribed. Some are threatened. Some are murdered. The case falls apart. Pablo walks free, and has learned a valuable lesson. In Colombia, with enough money and enough violence, you can get away with anything. The late 1970s witnessed Pablo's rapid ascension to power. He's forming alliances with other traffickers, creating what will become known as the Medellin cartel. He's revolutionary in his approach, treating cocaine trafficking like a legitimate business. He invests in infrastructure, buying planes, boats, and submarines. He establishes processing labs in the jungle. He creates sophisticated distribution networks throughout the United States. But here's what sets Pablo apart from other criminals. He understands public relations. While he's building his drug empire, he's also building schools and soccer fields in the poor neighborhoods of Medellin. He's handing out money to the needy. He's constructing housing for the homeless. The people love him. They call him Robin Hood and El Patron, the boss. To them, he's not a criminal. He's a benefactor who cares about them when the government doesn't. This public support will become his shield in the years to come. It's 1982. Pablo Escobar is now worth an estimated $3 billion. Yeah, billion with a B. His cartel controls 80% of the global cocaine trade. He's smuggling 15 tons of cocaine into the United States every single day. Forbes magazine will soon list him as the 7th richest man in the world. But money isn't enough for Pablo anymore. He wants legitimacy. He wants power. So he does something audacious. He runs for political office. Pablo gets elected as an alternate representative in Colombia's Chamber of Representatives. He's now Congressman Escobar. He attends sessions in Bogotá, shaking hands with senators and ministers. He's even photographed outside the White House during a trip to Washington. For a brief moment, it seems like Pablo might actually transition from criminal to politician. But there's one man who won't let that happen. His name is Rodrigo Lara Bonilla, and is Colombia's Minister of Justice. Lara Bonilla is young, idealistic, and incorruptible. 3 traits that make him extremely dangerous to Pablo Escobar. In August 1983, Lara Bonilla stood before Congress and exposed Pablo's criminal background. He shows evidence of Pablo's drug trafficking, his murders, his corruption. The scandal is massive. Pablo is forced to resign from Congress in humiliation. His dream of political legitimacy is shattered. And Pablo Escobar does not forgive humiliation. April 30th, 1984. Minister Lara Bonilla is riding in the back of his car through Bogotá. A motorcycle pulls up alongside him. The passenger pulls out a machine gun and opens fire. Lara Bonilla dies instantly, gunned down on the streets of the capital. The assassination sends shockwaves through Colombia. This isn't just another murder. This is the assassination of a sitting government minister. Pablo has crossed a line that can never be uncrossed. President Belisario Betancur, who had previously taken a soft approach to drug traffickers, is forced to act. He reinstates extradition treaties with the United States, the one thing Pablo fears most. You see, Pablo knows he can buy or kill any Colombian judge. But American judges? That's a different story. Suddenly, Pablo and his associates face the real possibility of spending life in American prisons. The Colombian government launches a massive crackdown. They raid Pablo's properties, seizing planes, boats, and processing labs. They discover Hacienda Nápoles, Pablo's massive estate complete with a private zoo, a lake, and airstrips. The government doesn't just raid it. They turn it into a tourist attraction, humiliating Pablo. Pablo flees Medellin and goes into hiding. But he doesn't go quietly. He begins a bombing campaign targeting government buildings, police stations, and businesses. Colombia descends into chaos. The death toll climbs every day. And this is just the beginning. From his hiding spots in the jungle, Pablo launches what he calls total war against the Colombian state. He creates a terrorist group called Los Extraditables, the extraditable ones. Their motto: we prefer a grave in Colombia to a cell in the United States. Pablo offers bounties for dead police officers, $1,000 for every cop killed in Medellin. Young sicarios, teenage assassins, roam the streets hunting police. In 1984 alone, over 600 police officers were murdered. The police force is terrified. Many quit. Others refuse to patrol certain areas. Medellin becomes a war zone. But Pablo isn't just targeting the police. He's going after anyone who supports extradition. Journalists who write against him are assassinated. The editor of El Espectador newspaper, Guillermo Cano, was gunned down in December 1986. Supreme Court justices are murdered in their homes. In November 1985, Pablo financed an attack on Colombia's Palace of Justice. The M19 guerrilla group, funded by Escobar, storms the building. The siege lasts 28 hours. When it's over, 11 Supreme Court justices are dead. Over 100 people total have been killed, including guerrillas, soldiers, and civilians. Files related to extradition cases conveniently disappear in the chaos. Pablo is sending a clear message. No one is safe. By the late 1980s, Colombia was a nation under siege. 3 presidential candidates who support extradition are assassinated. Luis Carlos Galen, the front-runner and Pablo's most vocal opponent, was gunned down at a campaign rally in August 1989. His death is broadcast live on television. The entire nation watches in horror as Galen bleeds out on stage. But Pablo isn't done. He wants to kill Cesar Gaviria, Galen's successor as the Liberal Party candidate, and is willing to do the unthinkable to make it happen. Here's where we get to that moment I mentioned at the beginning. August 18th, 1989. Avianca Flight 203 is preparing for takeoff from Bogotá to Cali. It's a short domestic flight, routine in every way. Among the 110 passengers and crew are business people, families, and students heading home. Intelligence suggests that Cesar Gaviria, the presidential candidate, will be on this flight. Pablo's sicarios plant a bomb on board. A sophisticated device hidden in the luggage compartment, timed to detonate mid-flight. The plane takes off normally. 7 minutes later, at 7:13 a.m., the bomb explodes. The aircraft disintegrates in the sky over Socha. Wreckage rains down on a populated area below. All 107 passengers and crew die instantly. 3 people on the ground are killed by falling debris. It's the deadliest act of terrorism in Colombian history. And here's the cruel irony. Cesar Gaviria wasn't even on the flight. He'd changed his travel plans at the last minute. Pablo Escobar had murdered 110 innocent people for nothing. The Avianca bombing changes everything. International outrage is immediate and fierce. The United States increases pressure on Colombia, offering money, equipment, and intelligence. President Virgilio Barco Vargas declares a state of emergency and launches an all-out offensive against the Medellin cartel. Elite police units, trained by American DEA agents, begin hunting Pablo and his associates relentlessly. But Pablo escalates further. If the government wants war, he'll give them war. Between 1989 and 1990, Pablo orchestrated over 200 bombings across Colombia. Shopping centers, banks, newspaper offices, political party headquarters. The DAS building, Colombia's intelligence agency, was destroyed by a massive car bomb in December 1989, killing 63 people and injuring over 600. Bogotá becomes a city of fear. People are afraid to go shopping, afraid to ride buses, afraid to send their children to school. Every car could be a bomb. Every package could explode. Colombia is a nation held hostage by one man's narcissistic rage. And the violence is incredibly profitable. You see, every bombing, every assassination, every act of terror serves Pablo's ultimate goal: to force the government to negotiate, to end extradition, to let him continue his business in peace. By 1990, the Colombian government was facing an impossible choice: continue fighting and watch their country tear itself apart, or negotiate with a terrorist and set a precedent that will haunt them forever. President Cesar Gaviria, the man Pablo tried to kill, now sits in the presidential palace. And he makes a controversial decision. He offers Pablo a deal. If Pablo surrenders voluntarily, he won't be extradited to the United States. He'll serve his sentence in Colombia, in a prison of his own design. It sounds crazy, right? Letting a narco-terrorist build his own prison? But Gaviria is betting that getting Pablo off the streets, even on favorable terms, is better than watching Colombia burn. Pablo considers the offer carefully. By 1991, the pressure was immense. Many of his top lieutenants are dead or in prison. The search block, a special police unit dedicated to hunting him, is getting closer every day. His family is in danger. and there are rumors that his rivals, the Cali cartel, are cooperating with the government to eliminate him. On June 19, 1991, Pablo Escobar surrendered. He walks into his self-designed prison, La Catedral, located on a mountainside overlooking Medellin. But calling it a prison is generous. La Catedral has a soccer field, a giant dollhouse, a bar, and a jacuzzi. Pablo has a king-size bed, a sound system, and fax machines to continue running his business. He can have visitors whenever he wants. He even continues ordering hits from inside his prison. The Colombian public is outraged. This isn't justice. This is a joke. And Pablo is laughing at all of them. For a year, Pablo lived comfortably in La Catedral. He celebrates his birthday with parties. He meets with his lawyers and accountants. He even allegedly tortures and kills 2 of his associates inside the prison walls when he suspects them of stealing from him. But here's the thing about Pablo. He can never resist pushing his luck too far. When the government discovers he's still running his criminal empire from prison, they decide to transfer him to a real military facility. Pablo gets wind of the plan. And on July 22, 1992, he simply walks out of La Catedral. He and his brother Roberto, along with several associates, literally walk through a hole in the fence and disappear into the mountains. The government is humiliated once again. Pablo Escobar has escaped. And now he's more dangerous than ever because he has absolutely nothing to lose. The manhunt that follows is unlike anything Colombia has ever seen. The search block is now led by Colonel Hugo Martinez, a dedicated officer whose own family is under constant threat from Pablo's sicarios. The Americans send more DEA agents, more equipment, more intelligence support. They use satellite technology, wiretaps, and informants to track Pablo's every move. But there's another group hunting Pablo. Los Pepes, people persecuted by Pablo Escobar. This vigilante group is formed by Pablo's enemies, including members of the Cali cartel and some victims' families. Los Pepes wage their own brutal campaign. They target Pablo's infrastructure, burning his properties, killing his lawyers and accountants, and murdering his associates. They even threaten his family directly. It's later revealed that Los Pepes received intelligence and support from elements within the Colombian police and possibly the DEA. The line between law enforcement and vigilantism becomes very blurred. Pablo is now running for his life. He's constantly moving between safe houses in Medellin. He's lost most of his protection. Many of his most loyal sicarios are dead. His money is running out because Los Pepes keep destroying his businesses and assets. He's reduced to making desperate phone calls to his family, trying to arrange their escape from Colombia. And those phone calls will be his downfall. It's December 2nd, 1993. Pablo is hiding in a middle-class neighborhood in Medellin, in a modest house on the 2nd floor of a row building. He's been moving constantly, never staying anywhere more than a day or 2. But he makes a mistake. He stays on the phone too long talking to his son, Juan Pablo. The search block traces the call. They triangulate his position. Within minutes, Colombian police are surrounding the building. Pablo realizes what's happening. He grabs a pistol and tries to escape across the rooftops, but is 44 years old now, overweight and out of shape. The athletic young criminal who once outran the police is gone. The officers open fire. Pablo is hit multiple times. He falls on the terracotta roof tiles, his blood pooling around him. At 3 p.m. on December 2nd, 1993, Pablo Escobar is dead. The search block takes a photograph with his body, a grim trophy marking the end of the most intensive manhunt in history. News of Pablo's death spreads across Colombia within minutes. In wealthy neighborhoods, people celebrate in the streets. In poor barrios of Medellin, thousands mourn. They genuinely believed Pablo cared about them, even as he used their children as expendable soldiers in his war. Over 25,000 people attend his funeral, many weeping openly for the man they called their benefactor. But let's talk about the real cost of Pablo Escobar's war on Colombia. Conservative estimates put the death toll at over 5,000 people directly killed on Pablo's orders. But the true number is likely much higher. Judges, journalists, politicians, police officers, innocent civilians caught in bombings, rival drug traffickers, and even his own associates who disappointed him. Colombia's institutions were devastated. The judiciary was gutted by assassinations and intimidation. Many talented judges and prosecutors fled the country or left the profession entirely. The psychological trauma affected an entire generation of Colombians who grew up during the worst years of the violence. The economic cost is incalculable. Tourism disappeared. Foreign investment dried up. Businesses closed. Colombia's international reputation was destroyed. For decades, the name Colombia became synonymous with cocaine and violence. And here's something that haunts Colombia to this day. Pablo's success inspired thousands of young men to enter the drug trade. He showed them that a poor kid from the slums could become one of the richest men in the world through cocaine trafficking. Never mind that Pablo ended up dead on a rooftop at 44. The allure of the wealth and power proved irresistible to many. The drug trade didn't end with Pablo's death. The Cali cartel took over most of his routes. When they were dismantled, smaller cartels emerged. The Norte del Valle cartel, the North Coast cartel, and eventually the current criminal organizations like the Urabenos. Colombia spent another 2 decades fighting these groups. What about Pablo's family? His wife Maria Victoria and their 2 children, Juan Pablo and Manuela, fled Colombia after his death. They changed their names and eventually settled in Argentina. Juan Pablo, now known as Sebastian Marroquin, became an architect and author. He spent years apologizing to Pablo's victims and trying to distance himself from his father's legacy. Manuela, Pablo's beloved daughter for whom he once burned $2 million in cash to keep her warm, has lived in obscurity. The trauma of her childhood left deep scars. Colombia itself eventually found a path forward. The government negotiated peace deals with guerrilla groups. The economy stabilized and grew. Cities like Medellin underwent dramatic transformations, becoming centers of innovation and culture. Today, Medellin is known for its metro system, its libraries, and its urban renewal, not for Pablo Escobar. Though narco-tourism still brings people seeking to walk in Pablo's footsteps, much to the dismay of locals who want to forget. But Pablo's legacy raises difficult questions that Colombia still grapples with. How did one criminal become so powerful? The answer is corruption. Pablo couldn't have built his empire without the complicity of police, military officers, judges, and politicians. He corrupted every institution he touched, and some of that corruption persists today. Why did poor communities support him even as he destroyed their country? Because the government had abandoned them first. Pablo filled a vacuum created by decades of inequality and neglect. His housing projects and soccer fields were more than most residents had ever received from their own government. That's a damning indictment of Colombia's leadership at the time. And here's perhaps the most troubling question. Was the war on Pablo Escobar worth it? Think about it. The government made a deal allowing Pablo to surrender to a prison he designed himself. When that failed and he escaped, they hunted him for 16 months. Thousands more people died during that manhunt. In the end, Pablo was killed in a shootout on a rooftop. Some argue the government should have just killed him from the beginning instead of trying to negotiate. Others say the attempt at a legal solution, even one that failed, was necessary to preserve democratic principles. There's no easy answer. What we do know is that Pablo Escobar's declaration of war on Colombia was one of the darkest chapters in modern history. One man, driven by greed, ego, and a pathological inability to accept defeat, brought an entire nation to its knees. He murdered thousands, corrupted institutions, and traumatized generations, all to protect his ability to sell poison to addicts in foreign countries. There was no nobility in his cause, no revolutionary ideology, just naked self-interest wrapped in a thin veneer of populism. Pablo liked to style himself as a man of the people, but his actions showed the truth. He used the poor as human shields and cannon fodder. He built schools with one hand while ordering the deaths of children with the other. He claimed to love Colombia while doing more damage to it than any foreign invader ever could. In the end, Pablo Escobar's story is a cautionary tale about the dangers of unchecked power, institutional weakness, and societal inequality. It's about what happens when a society allows corruption to fester, when institutions fail to serve the people, when poverty creates desperation that criminals can exploit. Colombia has worked hard to move beyond Pablo's shadow. The country has made remarkable progress in the 3 decades since his death, but the scars remain. Families still mourn loved ones killed in his bombings. Communities still struggle with the consequences of the violence he unleashed. And the drug trade, the source of Pablo's wealth and power, continues to plague not just Colombia but the entire region. So what's the lesson here? Maybe it's that no individual should ever accumulate so much power that they can wage war on their own country. Maybe it's that justice delayed is not justice at all, that the government's attempts to negotiate with Pablo only emboldened him. Maybe it's that poverty and inequality create vulnerabilities that criminals will always exploit. Or maybe the lesson is simpler, that violence begets violence, that terrorism, no matter the cause, destroys far more than it creates, that the pursuit of power and wealth at any cost ultimately costs everything. Pablo Escobar declared war on Colombia on August 18, 1989, when he blew up Avianca Flight 203. But really, he'd been waging war on his country for years before that. Every bribe he paid corrupted the system a little more. Every murder he ordered normalized violence a little more. Every ton of cocaine he exported damaged his country's reputation a little more. The Avianca bombing was just the moment when there could be no more denial. No more pretending this was just another criminal. This was terrorism, plain and simple. And Colombia, finally, was ready to fight back. It took 4 more years of bloodshed, but eventually, justice came for Pablo Escobar on that rooftop in Medellin. Not the justice of a courtroom and a fair trial. Not the justice of prison and rehabilitation, but the final justice of a bullet, ending the life of a man who had ended so many others. You may not agree with how it ended. You may think Pablo deserved a trial. You may believe that killing him made him a martyr to some. And you might be right. But here's what matters to the people of Colombia. The terror ended. The bombing stopped. The assassinations ceased. Families could walk the streets without fear again. That's what Ibrahim Traoré represents to Africans, and that's what Pablo's death represented to Colombians. Freedom from fear, the chance to rebuild, the possibility of a future not defined by violence. Thank you for watching.